want to let you know the copy of the Open Meetings Act is on the table back here. First agenda item this morning are approval of the minutes from June 7th.
I'll go ahead and note that there needed to be a name change under Michael, in reference to when Michael spoke, that the last name should be Wilson, not Weber. Otherwise, I would move to approve the minutes.
That's on page 4, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. I would second that.
Condon.
Yes.
Garver.
Yes.
Nolte.
Yes.
3-0, motion carries.
Okay, next is interview. Our final interview this morning is with Jim Ballard. Jim, if you want to come up and have a seat. As you know, you'll have 15 minutes to answer the 2 questions, and after that, we'll most likely have a couple follow-ups. So, and the 2 questions are, why do you want to be a county commissioner, and what do you want to accomplish? So.
Certainly. Thank you. First of all, thank you for letting me be here today. It's a privilege and an honor. As you may know, I ran for the District 2 seat in 2016, and unfortunately lost a very close race to Miss Brinkman. I think it was by 30 votes or so. And I'll be honest, while it was not fun to come up short, I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. It was a great opportunity to meet the people of Northwest Lancaster County and also get a better understanding of how our county government works, and a greater appreciation of the monumental task and responsibility you and your fellow county officials and their staffs have on a daily basis. Over the course of the campaign, I attended on a regular basis the Thursday staff meetings, sat in on a budget retreat, met with a number of officials, toured county facilities, including the jail, spent a couple days with Ms. Dingman out on the road and at her facility, had some enlightening conversations with Sheriff Wagner, just to name a few. And what I found out was that Lancaster County, as you guys know, has a lot of moving parts with good and knowledgeable people in place, trying to make all those parts work together for the betterment of our community. What I also learned was that as a county commissioner, I would not always have all the answers, but it would be my responsibility to be a good steward of the people's tax dollars, allocating them in a wise manner, and to be quite frank, I would love to have that responsibility. What I also found out by what I call walking, knocking, and talking is that most people I visited with weren't quite sure what a county commissioner did. That gave me a great opportunity to share something I truly believe, and that is local politics is vital in people's everyday lives, and they should become engaged locally, because while national politics seem to grab much of our attention and create great conversation and debate, it's the decisions made at the city, county, and even state levels that truly affects us on a day-to-day basis. When I made the decision to run for the county board back in 2015, I did so because I wanted to give back to my community. And I was, and I still think, in a good position to do so. And I know everybody says that, and it sounds somewhat cliche, but it is the truth. I think I have something to offer to a place where I've lived for nearly 30 years, have raised my children, and where I've had the opportunity not only to help start a family business in the rural part of the district, but have also had the opportunity to take on another business in a part of Lincoln, still in District 2, that I truly believe in and love, and that is the Haymarket District. What I have to offer is, first and foremost, I believe, servant leadership. I believe this is a position that requires a servant leader. Throughout my career, and in fact my life, I've served in various capacities on boards and committees within my church, my community, my profession. And as a county commissioner, my responsibility would be to serve the folks I represent in District 2, not only in District 2, but also all of Lancaster County. Secondly, I've worked in both the private and public sector. As a public employee, I was held accountable for taxpayer dollars. I had to justify how I used those dollars and develop priorities in doing so. I would also bring the experience of being a small business owner to this position, which I think is critical. As a business owner, I've had to set budgets and make tough decisions, when it comes to those budgets. Granted, it's not the nearly $200 million budget that the county works with, but it's still significant and something I take very seriously, especially when it affects the livelihoods of a number of individuals and families. Again, I truly believe my practical business experience is perhaps the greatest asset I would bring to the board. Another strength I have to offer is the advantage of living and running a business in the rural part of the county. Although the type of farming we do isn't quite traditional farming, I feel I have a good understanding of the challenges and sometimes struggles that many who live and make their livelihood in the rural areas have. While at the same time, owning a business in downtown Lincoln has given me a greater knowledge of some of the obstacles that local businesses are up against, as well as successes of free enterprise with businesses, which I believe is truly the heart and soul of what drives this community. Finally, I'm not naive enough to not understand that politics come into play at all levels of government. However, I don't consider myself a politician. In fact, I had never run for office before 2016. And I wholeheartedly believe that the majority of the issues the county faces should not be decided by politics, but by common sense and doing what is right for the people of Lancaster County. Now, on the second question, what would I like to accomplish if appointed to this position? Let me first just take a real broad brushstroke to this question. As I mentioned in my application letter, I would approach this position with the same four core principles I based my campaign on in 2016. That is, number one, as I mentioned earlier, is to be a good steward of the county's tax dollars, making sure the county has a budget that is effective, efficient, and makes good sense. Number two, I would work to promote an environment that attracts and keeps good businesses in the county. Next, I feel it's a necessity to make sure law enforcement, corrections, and the court system is always sufficiently funded and equipped to ensure all residents of this county continue to have the quality of life that we've come to expect. And finally, I would work to make the decisions that are proactive as we prepare for future growth and development of our county. I guess more specifically to answer this question, I would start by saying that one of the first things I would advocate for and hopefully take a lead in is creating a comprehensive strategic plan for the county. I believe the city has a 2040 vision in place, but as far as I can tell, and I haven't seen anything, I know individual departments do this, but I haven't seen anything for the county that there isn't one of those currently in place. I would approach this like I would my business plan for my business. You need to set priorities, which have goals and objectives, and of course an action plan on how to get there. I believe the county needs a blueprint or a roadmap, if you will, to plan for the future. Of course, a good strategic plan has to be fluid and should be reviewed on a regular basis, but it gives good clarity and guidance to where you should be headed. So to dovetail off that, one of the first efforts of that plan would be county roads and bridges, the infrastructure of the county. Now this problem, it is a problem, wasn't created overnight, and it won't be remedied overnight. This is an issue that's going to take some tough decisions, possibly reallocation of funds, setting priorities, knowing we can't fix every bridge or road in the county tomorrow, but isolating the most critical and creating temporary fixes for others. Maybe sadly having to close roads, bridges where there are no quick solutions with as little disruption as possible. And right now I'm living one of those situations. We have a bridge probably not even a mile from our home and our business that's currently closed, and it has disrupted not only our personal lives but our business life. So I know what it takes and what happens in those situations and some of the tough decisions that need to be made. Another issue that needs attention is corrections, and I wish there was a silver bullet to fix this, because there are so many layers to it, and it's a budget issue. I mean, when you're talking nearly $100 a day to house an inmate, it adds up quickly. And I think the last time I checked, I believe there are 625 residents in our county jail. That's $625 a day. That's significant. It's a mental health issue. I don't know what the statistics are right now, but if memory serves me right, when I toured the jail with the director of corrections at that time, I think he stated that nearly a third of all those incarcerated had either mental health issues or drug or alcohol problems. I know the Justice Council is in place working on strategies to lower the inmate population, and I would work hard to continue to promote current and maybe even develop other diversion programs similar to our drug court or our veterans court. We need to start some of those diversion programs early with youth, possibly partner with nonprofits even more and private sectors of our community. in that regard, I know Sarah Hoyle, I've chatted with her, does an outstanding job with the JDI. That's just one type of program that can make a difference. And I know when it comes to sentencing and other issues involving corrections, the state hands down mandates, many times unfunded. And I would work with the county lobbyists to continue telling the county story to the state legislators to either decrease those mandates or at the very least provide some sort of funding. Finally, I would work hard to make sure county business continues to be transparent. I believe it's through OpenGov that constituents can track the county's expenses and some of those revenues that come in, and I think that is the way government should operate. I know when talking with people during the campaign, the issue of property tax was probably first and foremost that was brought up. And although only I think it's about 14% of the tax revenue comes to the county, I would do everything in my power to make sure the levy stays at or below its current rate. I applaud the efforts of the current county board. I think they've done a wonderful job, especially in their ability to keep the levy stable while working within their means. And I'll be honest, there are so many nuances to how government operates, and there's so much to learn. But as a Lancaster County Commissioner, my promise would be to keep an open mind, look at all sides of an issue, and be held responsible of the decisions that I make for the people of the county. And with that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions.
One issue I'm interested in is roads, and you mentioned that in depth. I see it as an economic issue, a developmental issue, public safety. There's a huge backlog. How do you get a handle on that, or is that just something we're going to have to live with for the next 30 to 40 years?
That's a great question, and my understanding, or at least my perspective, is this, again, I said it hasn't happened overnight. It's taken years, and I think roads were, if there was funding that needed to be pushed somewhere else, and I'm not, no blame on past county boards or anything like that, but it was pushed here or there, and roads were neglected.
It's a state or even national.
And it's not uncommon to our county, correct? And that's why I mentioned it's not an easy chore. I think one thing has to be done is to prioritize, and I know in talking with Pam, sometimes she's not crazy about that because she thinks they're all priorities, and I understand that. But we just need to find those that need the most help and justify those dollars maybe being shifted. And I know that she even got more. Again, it's interesting because when I did run for the county seat a couple years ago, I was at all the meetings and I was in depth, and there's a lot of things that you have to learn and understand, and not being there every day and entrenched in it. I'm just like everybody else. What I see sometimes, I read in the paper or hear in the news, but I know that she did receive more funding this year for roads and bridges, and I think she's doing a good job of trying to find solutions. I think we need to continue to look for state help, for federal help, and I know federal dollars don't come real quick. It takes a while to get those in place, but at least to get some of those commitments, and you have to keep looking for some of that outside help as well. It can't all take place internally, but it's not an easy fix, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight, and there's going to be tough decisions to make when it comes to our infrastructure. But you're correct. When I talk about attracting businesses and keeping businesses here, it's not just about tax incentives or anything, but it's roads. It's having an environment within our community that incoming businesses or people looking to open businesses in this county, and there's a whole. It's not just one issue. It's a number of issues, and county roads is part of that.
What do you perceive as the county's responsibility for mental health?
And again, I wish we had dollars just to give to mental health and to hire more folks to help out in that regard. I think the county has to take the lead in mental health issues, but I don't think it's fully a county responsibility. I think we have to co-op with nonprofits. We have to co-op with the private sector. It's not just a county board or a county official or corrections. It's a community problem, a community issue. And so we need to continue to work on partnering to provide services for those with mental health needs. Try to target those early and to make sure they don't end up in our correction facilities and they get the help they need. Again, there's no silver bullet for that. I think we just have to cooperate and work together as a community to help solve some of those issues.
So you mentioned that you'd want to make sure that the levy stayed the same. Does that mean that you'd want to keep the budget the same, or are you looking that some areas might need something more? I mean, how would we balance all this with the mental health issues, the jail being almost at capacity, and our roads and bridge problem?
That's a great question, and I think what the board is doing now is trying to look at some outcome budgeting, whereas you look at different parts of the county government and you look at the goals and objectives and what those priorities are, and you set your budget accordingly. And that means sometimes some areas of the county may not get the funding that they need at certain times, and you hope all that balances out over the course of time. But you have to look at what those, like I said, objectives are and budget accordingly. Again, not an easy answer, not a something I can't say here. I'd say I would give this much money to this and this much to that, because your budget is based on what comes in as well, and what those projections are and assessments are, and then you just have to sit down, and not unlike we have to do with my business. Every year I take a look at, I need to build this building, or I need to buy this equipment. Either I'm going to have to raise my revenue, or I'm going to have to cut something. And it sounds like a simple solution, but it's not. And I would approach this the same way. You got to make some of those tough decisions. Maybe this year I'm not going to be able to buy a new tractor because I have to pay for this over here, and that's the same way you do it as you budget for the county.
As you can imagine, I mean, my concern again is with, and not that everybody's here isn't, with community safety, but that's my issue. And, when we look at the outcome-based budget, I mean, there's certain things that we can do in regards to programmings and things that we can be involved with. But in the face of really a true outcome-based budget, what we're doing a lot of times ends up with people being in jail. Basically, there's not a good outcome, at least for income, from the perspective of the county attorney, and what the role is that we're having. So, I guess my question is with the growing community that we see in Lancaster County, with that growing community, as both members of this committee here set to pick somebody, you mentioned briefly about your long-term planning, but how does that figure into the roads, the community safety, the mental health problems? Can you just describe or kind of expound on that a little bit in what you mean by your long-term plan? Covering all those bases.
In terms of strategic plan?
Yes.
I think when you put together a strategic plan, you have to bring in all the shareholders. You have to get feedback from them, and then you have to develop your goals and objectives for that, looking down the road. Where do we want to be 5 years? Where do we want to be 10 years? And again, that has to be flexible. I'm not saying that when you set a strategic plan, it's set in stone. You go back and you revisit that plan on a consistent basis. For example, for roads, who would have predicted that we were going to get the storms that we've gotten the last couple of years? That changes completely the face of how you handle roads and the infrastructure and the bridges of our county. So I think it's a matter of at least putting something in motion that you can start developing some of those goals and objectives. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, but I know that when it comes to corrections and law enforcement, and I respect, my brother-in-law is a sheriff in this county. He's been for years. Now he works in the court system, so I hear a lot of stories about what happens in the courts as well. And I respect what law enforcement does, and that's a vital part of our community. But we need to sit down with again, the stakeholders in corrections, in law enforcement, and put together something that at least you can start working towards, instead of just saying we need this quick fix here, this quick fix there. We need to start developing that plan, a strategic plan.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, and I guess, for me to somewhat follow up on that is when we're talking about that and when we're talking about, the law enforcement aspect, it would seem to me that you have all these immediate problems, so you're saying, well, we need to deal with the immediate problems and the roads, the bridges, things of that nature. How do you balance that so where you're not cutting in an area that also needs it, but maybe you don't see that need right now immediate, but you don't want to take away from it because the needs are there.
Sure, and that goes back to that plan. If you have a good plan in place and you're looking down the road, you can cut according to some of those goals and objectives you have for the future, and it just gives you a better idea of, if we do this now, how's that going to affect our long-range plan that we have? And there's no simple answers to that. And again, I don't mean to compare government to business, but the same thing happens in private business. There's some things that we can't foresee that are immediate needs, but we have a plan in place and we know where we want to get in 5 years, and we can make some decisions currently with that goal and those ends in mind. So I just think having a plan, and you can tell I'm kind of a structured guy. I love having structure, and I love having a plan in place and to follow that plan and to try to answer the needs, the immediate needs, but it also fits into a larger goal of where are we going.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else, or? Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Next, we have public comment. Thank you. Next, we have public comment. It doesn't look like we have anyone here. I will mention the emails that I received since Friday. I had one from Randy Moody in support of Christy Yoakum, one from Doug and Kathleen Dozel supporting Greg Osborne, Julie Wallstrom supporting Tammy Soper, Lloyd Hinckley in support of Greg Osborne, Mike and Charlotte Ralston supporting Greg Osborne, and one from Bruce Bailey this morning in support of Greg Osborne. And that was up to 9:45 this morning. Next on the agenda is break. Do we need a break, or can we continue on?
And I'm gonna request a break, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I was at another meeting immediately before this, so I did not get a chance to review my emails to see if I had any, I was at a.
Okay.
And I received yours, I believe Corey sent them out.
Right.
I just want to make sure nobody has emailed me
Okay.
personally, and then I want to be able to get those out to the board members, and if, like I said, I apologize, but I was
Not a
in a
problem.
meeting, and so if we
So-
just take a brief break and I can check that and see, and if there's not, then I've received all the ones that you've mentioned, so. So if we can take, maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then I can.
So I've got 10:26, 10:25.
25.
So if we come back at 22,
That's fine.
50, that's 15 minutes. Does it give you enough time?
Yep, that's
Okay.
absolutely enough time.
Just, we had a,
Yeah,
email.
I presented an email that I received through our office has its own email account. This came through our office email account. It was in regards to a discussion that Mr. Wilson and I had last week, and it was his response kind of directed to the questions that I posed to Mr. Wilson. So I wanted to make sure everybody saw Mr. Wilson and his response to that inquiry that I had.
Next on our agenda this morning is a discussion on procedures for final interviews, which we have scheduled for Friday at 2.
I think we talked about this a little bit before. I think we said a half hour, didn't we, initially?
Per person?
Yeah.
I think so.
If we do an interview by person, but if we get a panel and do the round robin, I think that would ensure that nobody's disadvantaged by going first or last.
Yeah, one person would each have
Because with
a
open
new
meeting,
question, wouldn't they?
yeah, with the open meeting law, somebody who goes last could sit through
Absolutely.
the whole thing, and
I'm fine with that, so. How many questions, do we each want to come up with 4 or 5 questions for them to Corey? I imagine there'll be some overlap, and she can kind of see where we're at on those. Maybe trying to come up with 10 or 12 in the end. That may take us a little bit past the half hour per person, but
well,
it's,
we could, once she comes down to what would be consolidating them, we could then each give our own priority of, or what we want to ask, and
well,
then.
I know what mine are, they may not be what yours are.
Right, I know, but, I mean, this way, if we do our own priorities, then,
But
you
I
just send
assume-
your priorities to court. And you may look at a question Pat asked and said, oh, that's a really good one, that's a priority.
Sure.
And then we can
But
just go down the list, and if we don't have enough time to ask all of them, at least we got the priorities to ask.
How about this, we each forward 5 questions, Corey, and then if there's some overlap, she'll get those narrowed down, and then, if we did 10 questions at 3 minutes each, that would be possibly 30 minutes. It may vary a little bit depending on if we have follow-ups and so forth, and, well, I guess it depends on the number of people, too. I mean,
Sure.
So,
I mean, most, I'm not gonna say best or worst, because it could be one of the other, so, but most case scenario, the most we could have is 6, if all of us came up with 2 different ones.
and we may have 2.
Right, and so we could be anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. And I know you've probably both been up on public speaking before, but in front of a jury, 3 minutes would go very quickly. And to try to get out what you're going to say in 3 minutes on some of the complex issues that we're dealing with.
I'm open to spending more time. I
Okay.
really am. I hate to limit it to 3, so.
Oh, 3 minutes per question is what, or what do we limited what
Well,
to
if we
3?
did 3 minutes per question, and we had 10 questions, that's 30 minutes per person.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's really, that to me doesn't seem like maybe enough time,
Right.
depending on the questions.
Especially if we want any follow-up.
Yeah.
Well, and some questions,
Do we need to have a time limit, or can we leave it open-ended?
I think we have to have somewhat of a time limit, so that somebody doesn't just go on and
Right,
on.
right.
But what's reasonable?
5 minutes?
They presented in 15 and
Mhm.
had a lot to say in
Right.
15, so tackling various different topics. And nobody I think with the follow-up questions, nobody went real far
It held
into
right
depth.
around, probably no more than a half hour.
Yeah.
So if there's 6, that would be a half hour each. That'd be 3 hours. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. Does it to you, Pat? or-
No, I think we could say a half hour and then note that if we have follow-ups or
Right.
questions like that, we can agree to let them go a little longer if need be.
Well, but it wouldn't be a straight half hour if we're asking the first one,
Right.
It would be,
second, third,
it'd be so many minutes per question.
Yeah, it probably needs
So-
to be so many minutes per question to make it easier. Otherwise, Leslie might need to have some help in figuring out time. You know, some people are going to take longer than others at some
Right.
questions, and some questions are going to deem
Longer
more
answer.
time. So I think if we say, we can make a suggestion, 3 minutes and maximum of 5, that at least they'll be cognizant of, that we don't want anybody to discuss something for hours.
So when do we kind of get back to the questions? Do we come up with 5 questions, 10 questions?
How about we each come up with up to 5?
Okay.
And then when Corey sends those to you, then we can pare those down if necessary to a reasonable number, whatever that may be, so that we try and keep it a half hour to 45 minutes per person. Because I think we want to, at least I want to be able to have some follow-up if necessary. so.
No, a follow-up would be important.
And then again, from the courtroom standpoint, do we want to let them, if they want, they can, have 3 minutes to sum up at the end, or 5 minutes, or do you think we're going to hear everything we need in the questioning?
I'm fine with that if you think that would be helpful.
That's all right with me.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, I think
fine.
we all agree this is a pretty heady task that we're all tasked with, and what we're asking them to do.
I guess another question I have is if somebody's not available Friday, does that leave them out of the mix?
We probably should have asked them. Wow. It would be pretty hard to. It wouldn't quite be fair, but it would be pretty hard
Right.
to, it wouldn't be fair either way to not have them or, wow. I don't really,
I understand the fairness, but I hate to deprive somebody if one of our picks isn't able to be there. I don't want to just, I'd hate to automatically eliminate that person, but what do you think?
No, I don't disagree, I mean, and as Rachel said, I mean,
It's-
what happens if somebody has vacation tickets, although they knew what
Right.
our schedule was, so
Right.
they
Yeah,
should have,
it's-
I'm just thinking if they have vacation, be gone out of the state for 7 days, starting on Thursday.
well, yeah, I wouldn't think anybody would have done that,
Yeah. So,
but we don't know.
Well, we can,
Can we leave that open-ended, and then after I contact the people
You
about
see-
Friday, if we run into this, we can decide it on
Right.
Friday then? Does that seem,
Yeah, we could,
we can decide yes or no
You may
then?
have to change your dates, because it wouldn't make sense bringing one person in for solo interviews when you're doing a round robin format.
Right.
Because then he
Well-
or she will have heard all the questions, and so then we either, if one of however many can't make it, then I think you may have to look at changing that interview date.
I hate to change everything around for one person. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because then you run into, well, I can't make that,
Right.
and so forth. So
well, we did have 9 out of 10 make Friday.
Mhm.
So I think there's a good chance that
they should all make
they should all
Friday.
make it. And if they don't, I guess we could be notified and maybe send our suggestions of what we should do to Corey.
And if you want to continue in the format that we have been last few meetings with the televising, I think it was that following week where they had a lot of conflicts. So that would be
that's the other,
on that end.
you know,
Because we have we, it's starting at 2, correct?
yes.
I mean, I suppose the other option would be, is to start it in the morning. You know, if somebody was not available, maybe a plane was leaving in the afternoon, could they do it in the morning?
Well, we could do it in the morning. I just would need,
Right.
I just would need to leave by like 11:15.
Mhm.
So if we wanted to start, say, at 8, we could get 3 hours in.
I'll just point out that you've had every applicant before you, not one of them, as far as I know, has told you that they will not be available on Friday.
Right.
If you think that they were not available, they would have told you during their interview?
And this was posted, I mean,
It was
Yeah.
posted.
yeah,
Okay.
so.
Well, I guess we'll cross that bridge if we need to. And so, okay. As far as making a decision, I'm not sure I'm comfortable doing that on Friday. I'd like to maybe think about these people over the weekend. Is that, but what's your guys' thinking?
I would be fine with waiting.
Yeah, that's fine. I was thinking this through, you know, we can't go into an executive session like you know,
Right.
we may be doing some other issues,
Right.
so, and perhaps depending on when we get to that selection process, one of the things I was thinking is we each just put our name on a piece of paper and, well, no, that's for this portion here today, this afternoon, when we go forward. For this afternoon, the selection process would be put each of our names on a piece of paper and then give those, and then have those just read. So nobody knows who anybody else is picking when they're picking, and then those, if there's, see what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
we should all have the same kind of piece of paper.
Well, I don't think I mean, I think it's gonna be public record
Right.
who
Right.
forwarded what names to.
I'm fine with that, or I'm fine with
What-
publicly stating that I don't have it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem publicly stating myself, but
Do you?
No, I was just,
Okay.
you know, I wouldn't want somebody to say, well, if
oh.
Rachel and Pat went one way and Dan's like, okay, well, I'm good with those two, I'm gonna cut that number down and, you know,
No.
you
Yeah,
know.
right,
And
right.
not that any of us would do that, but I
No,
think
no,
somebody
yeah.
could make that argument
Okay.
against us and that's, or
I
towards
hear
it.
you.
So again, kind of anonymous at first, but then on the record what they are, or who they
Okay,
were.
that makes sense.
And who did it,
I hear you. That-
and who did them.
And nobody's gonna know my handwriting, so.
Your name's gonna be there, so hopefully, so that's more for today, and then I think, yeah, I think then we need to think of how we're gonna go forward on the next round with the individuals that we have.
And will we need to, when we have that next round on Friday, will we need to have public comment?
I don't think we we've had public comments for this
So,
group,
okay,
so I think
okay,
we're fine.
That's good, because that could get
Right,
late.
right. Yeah,
And I think there's other ways we can be contacted besides
Well, and
public
that's,
comment.
yes.
Yeah, with the emails
Emails
and
and
letters and so
letters.
forth,
Mhm.
so.
all right, so if we're good for today, we do this kind of one thing at a time for our selection of the two individuals today. I would make a motion that each of us have a single piece of paper, we put our names on it, and we list our two people that we forward today for the final interviews.
I'll second that.
Garver.
Yes.
Nolte.
Yes.
Condon.
Yes.
3-0, motion carries.
All right, and then, how do we want to proceed with, once our final interviews are done, how that vote should look?
Good question.
Because what happens if we're all three on a different person?
And a fairly good chance of that.
Sure, I mean,
I assume they need to make 30 or 35 motions to. You know, it used to happen in the national conventions
Yeah,
back in, the
uh-huh.
you know, you had 40-some ballots and so forth, so maybe this is
these are rankings, you know, and I'm thinking out loud here, so if anybody has any other thoughts, you know, if we had our 10, let's see. If there's more than two, and I'm trying to think, if there's more than two, if we did like first place person, we would give 10 points to, second 5, and third 1, and then those scores are added up. Again, I think people would be able to, we would probably have to do that in a fashion that people would be able to go and see those votes. And then with 3, if we end up with 2 at the same score, and again, I'm trying to think of these numbers, how they would work.
Do we want to rank them initially, or each provide a name and then rank them from there? Kind of like we're doing this
Well-
morning, we each put a name, and then we have 3 to rank.
The other thing, I'm just thinking outside the box or something different, if we each have 3 different names, maybe we pare it down to those 3 names, and then
And do a ranking at that time.
we, well, we could do a ranking at that time, or we could each talk to those 3 and come back and,
Are they gonna have much, I mean, we've talked to them here today and yesterday, Friday. Are they-
I think we need to make a decision.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think we need to bring them back.
Well, we're going to spend an hour or more with each one.
Right.
I mean, total, or, you know, so
We're just throwing something out there
No,
for
yeah,
discussion.
I,
I'd like to have, when we're going, whatever time we meet, that we made the decision, that would be great.
if we ranked them, though, then when whoever makes the motion, we would be obligated then to support that. That If
Right.
you see what I'm saying.
Well, I think we'd
Right.
have to support the process that we're using and any outcome from that process. I mean, whether that's the individual that, you know,
So we would move that the person that had the highest score
Right.
would be seated,
Would
rather
be
rather than the individual.
Right.
Okay.
and that's what I mean. We'd have to be, I think we need to be, and I would prefer to be unanimous on the process, just because, again, I think it is important that what we're doing, and if we did some type of a ranking like that, I'm just trying to think if there'd be any way you could get a tie there, I suppose.
It's probably possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because, say, you and I ranked the three people the same, we would end up with the same score, and then Dan's score would stand differently.
I guess I'm gonna think about it a little bit, because then nobody's gonna know where we're at on things. I mean, this is not
Right.
as open as,
Well, and that's what I was saying. I think regardless of how we do it, if we do a ranking, I would say we put our names at the top of the
Okay.
paper and put 1, 2, and 3, and we
Okay.
rank, we put our 1, 2, and
Okay.
3 choices in there.
as
and
long
then-
as it's open.
And then I think then everybody knows where we stand, or
Okay.
if there's 2, we put our 1 and 2 people in there.
I guess you did say that.
Yeah, and because I agree. I think we need to be open and,
But if we have two people that have the same score, I mean, yeah, so we'd have two people.
Essentially,
Yeah.
whoever our top person would be like if we made the motion to see that person, but then my top person may not be yours, and so it might be an easier way to come up with a decision, rather than going through multiple motions,
Well,
so.
it might work. But would we still just each of us give our top person if two of us have the same top person? Or
Well,
what?
we would rank each one.
We would rank, all,
So number 1 would get
However
10
many
points,
we-
number 2 would get 5, number 3 would get 1. And so whoever had the highest score would be the selection.
okay.
so one could come in first on one and second on all of them, and that could be the person.
Right,
Okay,
That is,
right.
that advances. You have 2 people come in first, and one come in second, in the second place, one,
Then we draw the name out of the hat.
well, yeah. I don't think we can do anything by lot.
I think you would rank all of them 1 through 6, right? Or
Oh,
up to
right.
6. Up to 6. You rank them all in order, so then we have a ranked choice voting kind of situation where we then start eliminating your the lowest ones.
Okay. So if we did a rank of choice, say we had 3. If we all ranked them the same, then the third place person would drop out. But if we ranked them the same, why wouldn't the first place person just take?
I'm fine making a motion on a selection, and then if there's not consensus, then go to that.
you mean just everybody put in their first? I
Well, I'll
just
just
wanna
make a
make sure I
motion, I'll
understand.
make a motion who we want to select, and then if there's no second, then move on to this.
You mean one of us makes the motion of
Sure,
who to select,
yeah.
and then
If
if
there's
we
no
don't
consensus,
second?
then we look at this.
Well, who gets to make the motion? Because we
Any-
each would have our
Well,
pick.
okay. I'm just throwing that out.
No,
so-
I hear you. I just,
Would it make, would it make sense going forward with the decision today, and then based on the number that we have today, discuss how we move forward?
Well, I thought today we're each putting forth two names.
Right,
names.
and that's what I'm saying, you know,
So,
maybe,
right.
maybe, you know, what if after today, we only have two names?
Well,
Does
then
that
we should go
change
buy-
the?
Then we need to go buy lottery tickets.
But I'm just saying,
I
I mean,
know.
you know, or we could have six.
I would guess we'll have 6, but I don't,
If you're not gonna make your decision on Friday, then perhaps you could talk about this further on Friday.
That's what I was thinking. If
That's an
if we've
idea.
decided we're gonna wait, then we can discuss this, we can kind of look into things
okay.
over the rest of this week and decide how we want to
In
go
other words,
forward.
avoid a decision this morning.
That sounds good.
Well,
Well,
I
No,
think,
I-
and I think we
No,
all
I-
realize how
it's-
important of a
I
decision this
hadn't,
is.
I hadn't
It
thought
is.
about this. It makes sense. I mean, it really does, so. Well, let's do that, figure that out on Friday if you guys are okay with that.
That's
So,
fine.
Okay.
So today, we just go forward with
With our
our
selections.
selection of our,
And do we want to just do that right on a piece of paper then? Or
That-
just announce them? I'm open to either.
like I said, I would just, I would prefer the paper, so
Okay.
nobody can say that, well, you guys, I mean,
Okay.
somebody changed their mind
Right.
because,
Right.
yeah, I hear you.
So that's the only thing I'm thinking, and so if we do that, I'm gonna just quickly review things.
Dan, before we get to the point where you announce each of you your top two, maybe you want to make a motion on the interview process, so we have some clear direction on how you want that played out.
Do one of you want to make a motion on interview process for Friday?
And,
Oh.
and in regards to that, I mean, do we want to just, I mean, I know we're gonna pick 5 questions and forward them on, I think that's what we decided on, wasn't it? Was 5?
Yeah,
Up
up to 5.
Five.
Up to 5? 5 each? Up to 5 each. Up to 5 each, please keep. Do we want to announce those
The
to the
questions?
candidates?
No.
I think if we do the round robin, then each one will have at least
A new
one that
one.
they're not aware of.
Okay.
Could be 2, depending on
Sure.
how many questions we
Sure,
end up with.
okay, that's
so.
fine.
And we could, and if we go ahead and we each get the list of questions,
We can prioritize them how we
we
want to
can
ask them.
prioritize what we would like to ask, but then Corey can figure out what they are, so that if we get through all, say 15, that's the max we would have, unless we have some
Sure.
overlap, then we may only get through 10. And if we can prioritize them, we'll at least all have had our top ones. Is that?
That's-
So is that a motion then?
So we have a motion that, I'll make a motion that we each forward 5 questions to Corey, up to 5 questions to Corey, and she can consolidate them and then get them back out to us, and we can prioritize what we think should be the top questions that we ask. And we could just we can ask them in round robin amongst ourselves, and then the panel of applicants will answer in a round robin format.
I'll second it.
And I'm just, again, I'm trying to perceive what we're doing here, so would we have, if there's 4 of them, would we have all 4 of them up there and say, you answer this question, you answer that, and then they all answer the same questions?
Correct.
Okay.
And then number two will get
A
the second question.
and then they can,
Yeah, it'll just keep going around till we're
Okay.
done with the questions.
That way somebody will have,
the first question and then,
they won't have they
okay.
won't hear the other answers, so.
And everybody has a chance to answer every question.
All right. All right, with that understanding,
Nolte,
Yes.
Condon,
yes.
Garver.
Yes.
3-0, motion carries.
There also was discussion of a final summary at the end. Pat, you discussed it.
Oh.
Newspaper at the end.
Oh, correct. I move that we'll give each person 2 minutes after the initial
Question.
questions on Friday to summarize their interest and issues on the position opening.
I'll second.
Condon,
Yes.
Garver,
Yes,
Nolte.
Yes.
3-0, motion carries.
we didn't put a limit on the answering questions. Do we need to do that?
I think, did we say
I think it-
the overall,
I think overall would be very complicated to do, and I don't think we should go there. I think it should be
individual question?
individual questions.
Each person gets so many minutes to respond to that question.
Yeah,
That would make it a lot simpler.
Like 3 to 5, like the 3 to 5, 3 to 5, if we
Well,
want that many? do
Is it
we-
3 or is it 5? That's,
Well, I think, I think that's the thing. I mean,
We could-
I'm fine with 5.
up to 5
Yeah, up to 5.
yeah, let's we could say up to
per
5.
question?
Although it is Friday afternoon, maybe we want to shorten that up a little bit.
Maybe they'll want to shorten it up.
So I move that we allow up to 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes per question on the interview questions on Friday, so,
For each candidate, correct?
for each person.
Right. Yeah, I'll second that.
Nolte,
Yes.
Garver,
Yes,
Condon.
Yes.
3-0, motion carries.
Should we put something on the record that all three of us have now handed to the steno, our top two individuals? And then you want to just have her read those?
That'd be fine.
All right.
And I think you can announce who voted and who they voted for, so,
First, Rachel Garver voted for Krista Yoakum and Tammy Soper. Pat Condon voted Christy Joy and Jim Ballard. Dan Nolte voted Shane Jensen and Christy Joy.
So it looks like we'll have 5 then on Fridays.
all right, then I will make a motion that Krista Yoakum, Tammy Soper, Christy Joy, Jim Ballard, and Shane Jensen all be notified that we are asking them to come back for interviews on Friday, the 14th, I believe that.
And I'm sorry, did you mention Tammy as well?
Yeah, I think I did. If I didn't,
Okay.
Christy Yoakum, Tammy Soper, Christy Joy, Jim Ballard, and Shane Jensen.
Okay. Okay, I'll second that.
Nolte,
Yes?
Garver,
yes.
Condon.
Yes.
3-0, motion carries.
We're sticking with the 2 o'clock start time on Friday.
Yes. Unless there's any other business, we need a motion to adjourn.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Garver,
Yes.
Condon,
Yes.
Nolte.
Yes.
3-0, motion carries.